Hello, everybody. This is CJ Wiley with more adventures on the road. I started to go on earlier, and there's a lot of traffic. I just hold this camera, so obviously I don't wear a seatbelt, and don't tell me to wear a seatbelt because I'm not under anyone's authority. And I do wear one if I feel, if it's raining or snowing, or I feel like there is really some potential danger. But I don't drive any safer. As a matter of fact, with a seatbelt on, I actually take more risks. So it's probably safer that I don't. Anyway, if you saw my video yesterday, I was on my way to Waco, Texas on a spontaneous trip. A friend of mine, Travis, told me, and the previous evening there was a couple tournaments, and so I just asked where were they, and what are they all about? And he told me about the one in Waco. And I'm not crazy about handicap tournaments because it's kind of brutal to get, go through what I had to go through to become a top player, and then almost have to like give it away to, let me see, hold on just a second. I got to get set here, so I'm no longer a danger to myself and others. But anyway, handicap tournaments, but that's just the way it is now. So, it sounded like fun. So I went down and I did the video on the way, and it was funny because, I was talking about when I, got ready for some of my biggest tournaments and money matches. I would rehearse going through that match and actually losing. And I would kind of go into detail. I got all the bad rolls, and, I didn't, whatever I thought my weakness was, maybe I was shooting too fast or whatever that was, I faced it, admitted it, and accepted it. And then I opened my eyes back up, or, a lot of times I didn't have to close my eyes to do this, but after accepting the loss, I found that it freed me to be able to win and pull out victories that, were pretty amazing. And I never could take credit for it because it was like, the game was playing through me. But I couldn't do that if I couldn't accept defeat. And I said yesterday, Johnny Archer said that was his main key to becoming the player of the 90s is lowering his expectations. And that's basically the same thing. If you don't expect to win, if you don't expect to play well, it takes pressure off. But if, I've practiced before where I was playing so well that I kind of peaked out, and then I'd start playing the match. And if I missed a shot, I felt like I got stabbed. And it rattled me sometimes because I hadn't missed a ball for maybe an hour practicing. So now I try not to peak out when I'm practicing. I want to pace myself so that if I'm going to peak out, I want to do it, during the tournament. And preferably I'll play better and better each tournament match. That's to win some of the biggest ones like the ESPN World Championships that I've won, and especially the $1 Million Challenge where I played Earl in the finals after he'd ran 11 racks in a row for that $1 million. And he did get paid. We made a documentary. I got to say that every time. People still say he didn't get paid for some reason. I don't know how much I have to do. We made a documentary. It's at cjwiley.com with all my other instructional stuff. 15 hours of videos and instructional information that I've, created over the years. But, and Earl's on it, and he has said, it just took 2.5 years to get the money. I gave him the first $50,000, paid another $80,000 in legal fees, ran up another $120,000 in contingency legal fees because of my relationship with the attorneys that I knew in Dallas. And we got the money. We had to sue Lloyd's of London. They had 14 attorneys on closing day. We had 3, and they settled. And another thing that people didn't understand was that $1 million was $50,000 a year for 20 years, like a lottery. So if you take the cash instead, at that time it was 63%. So it was 630,000 if you just wanted the cash instead of the 50,000 a year. So, people said that he didn't get all the money. He only got like 600,000 or whatever. And well, that's all he could have got anyway. I mean, that was the 100% of what he won. So anyway, I mean, I always feel like I got to clear that up because for 2.5 years I was under a confidentiality agreement, and people were saying that I conned him and that money wasn't there and I really didn't do this and do. It's brutal when people are attacking you like that and you can't defend yourself. So, that was a tough time of my life. You never get, it's like, how severely can you get punished for doing something that got another pool player so much money? And, if he hadn't have done it the first day, it would have been a pretty big deal. But, as I've said, the game was still flawed back then. And even though I could get it on TV, what I've got now, this shooter dare, is something that can really get big on TV. I can always get it on TV. There's no mystical way. I mean, I do a barter system that they'll do right now, where I pay the production costs and they pay the airtime and I supply everything needed to run the event. That's a good deal for them. They're looking for content. So the airtime for them is, no out-of-pocket expense. So there's ways to do TV deals. If people are saying, why pool can't get on TV, it's only because nobody is doing it. Because when I did it from 96 to 99, and then got out of pool, nobody ever called me to ask me how I was doing the TV events. So I got away from, all the pool stuff to run my nightclubs or my pool room CJs and, the nightclub, Carson's, and I didn't have time to even play much pool. There was a 4-year period there where I didn't play at all. And I knew during that time that I was losing it, I mean, it was going to take a long time to get it back. And it sure has. I still don't have it back 100%. I have flashes of it, but back to yesterday, when I was doing that video, I was talking about accepting the defeat, that enables you to have some great victories. And boy, I had to practice what I preached because, every player I played, they went to 7 and I went to 9 until the last stages. And then the winner of the winner's bracket, the guy, I was playing, I asked him what he went to and he said, 4. I'm like, oh my God, I got to go to 9. You got to go to 4. And this guy could jump balls better than me and had a really good knowledge of the game. He could draw his ball. He had a good stroke, but he did need those games because, maybe it's more mental because he missed a 9 ball, during the course of that set that ended up, he would have beat me. Because it went down to Hill, and I beat him 9-3. But if he would have made that 9 ball, and it wasn't that hard, but it was a mental thing. Again, you have to be able to perform to your ability, and even if you've got the greatest physical techniques, I mean, there still need to be something extra. Although I'm a firm believer that you can't have the mental without the physical. So, okay, bring them on camera. Okay. But I have some points I want to go over that I've been thinking about. And, the main thing that I see in these tournaments is the players just aren't ever being put first. And, I talked to my partner, Casey down in Lafayette, Louisiana, and he's on board with me, 100% as far as that we really want to make pool better, but not better, different and unique. Like it's kind of like a building that's coming down, I'm not, I think it would just take too much work to like fix pool. So I set out to create another model of pool where we can just rebuild it from the start and create a great foundation. And whether it's the dress code, policies and procedures, the code of ethics, the rules, the format of the tournaments. Because I told him, I said, listen, our tournaments are going to be scheduled where the players know when they play. And it's all scheduled out. And even, he's creating a program that will track everything. And, and it's a process, maybe the first tournament we do, which the first big one's in the middle of July, and we're working out the details now. And then we're probably going to have one a month, and then the other weeks will be qualifiers and different types of tournaments to get people qualified in all over the country. And, we're doing this ourselves, so we don't, have a massive budget. And I appreciate all of you just sharing my stuff and getting the word out there, because, like I said, the players are going to come first, and the players need to know when they're going to play. That last tournament, I don't want to get back into that, but it took me 7 hours to play my first match, 5 hours to play my second, 3 hours to play my third. And I'm playing at 3 a.m. and if I win, I got to be back at 11. And then, it's just brutal. That's, how can you play your best? Now, if guys are doing this for a living, and I was one of them, I could have done, but you have to be willing to sleep in your chairs in your car and know, how to schedule around the fact that things aren't being scheduled. But I know for sure back in the 80s and early 90s, because I know personally, I was partners with one of them, John McChesney, that ran the McDermott Tour, and his tournaments went really smooth. And I think they ran quicker than the ones now with all these shotgun starts, because they're so disorganized. And as far as, you can't tell who's slowing up the tournaments. When everything is scheduled and a match runs 15 or 20 minutes behind, it exposes them. So if a player is taking an unnecessarily long period of time to shoot, he will be identified. And we've got the ability to put the times in where at the end of the tournament, we can tell how long it took every player as an average to complete their matches. Divide it, the games into that. We can tell them, we can see what the average per game is for every player. And we'll post that publicly so people can see, And then that's self-regulating. I used to do that in my nightclub. I had 18 bartenders on the floor at one time, so it was a pretty sophisticated operation, but we would put and post, not to the public, but to all the bartenders and staff upstairs in our offices, or our office, all their rings, what they were ringing per register. And we knew the averages per day per register. And the bartenders, if they saw one of the other bartenders, falling behind, either because of lack of skill or sometimes it was theft issues, they would force those bartenders. First of all, they'd make fun of them, and they'd shame them, among others. Shame's a bad word, but sometimes it's a positive motivator when it's done with good intentions. So they would make fun and often kind of humiliate the bartenders that are falling behind. And I'm glad they did, because some of them were actually stealing from us. And so I don't have any sympathy for them. But then if they continue to fall behind, because they were bringing down everybody's money, because we did tip sharing, the bartenders would come to the bar manager and say, listen, take a good look at this one guy. And often, it would be a signal that we'd go to them and have that discussion that maybe they weren't right for this business, and maybe they should pursue another career or something other than what we were doing. Because like one of my GMs said, every person he ever fired would end the conversation by thanking him, because he didn't fire them and tell them they were no good. He told them that maybe their time would be more productive going back to school or pursuing another type job, or or he'd give them suggestions to better their life instead of just kicking them out and making them feel bad. See, there's a difference how you present things to people, and even a negative thing like firing an employee can often be something that years later they'll come back and say, that was one of the best things that's ever happened to me, to that manager. Or I've heard that myself several times, where I did something that at the time the person thought it was a negative deal. Maybe I was too honest with them, but we never know what's in store for us in life, and we really don't want to waste time. I mean, that's the reason I teach the physical fundamentals I do, because if somebody is willing to take 2 or 3 weeks to learn what I teach, they can build a foundation and get better and better the rest of their life. If they don't, they can continue to do what they're doing. And I know guys that's been playing 3 hours a day every day for like 10 or 15 years and never got any better. That's impossible if you have a good foundation, but all of them were doing things wrong. Generally the key is the alignment, and the footwork is essential to do the alignment and going down on the ball. I've described all that stuff. You can see that in detail, on other videos and on masteringpocketbilliards.com, which has that information. But so back to this shooter dare. Shooterdare.com. If you haven't heard about it or seen, I have 3 videos that I would recommend if you want to know more about it to take a look at, because this is a refined version of what I used on the road. Back then, everybody played these type of rules. This is just a refined version that I created through using a formula to bring out the best aspects of pool. And especially, the knowledge and the mental part of this game is much more strenuous than regular rotation pool. It's a battle between the 2 players for the first shot, mentally and physically. So you have to learn the 3-way shots. Once you learn the shooter dare game, all of your other games will improve, especially one pocket. People are going more to one pocket because it does take, it's more of a battle between the players for the shot. It takes more knowledge, and you got to be able to hit the 3-way shots. Like I said, I love the game of one pocket, except for about 70% of the shots oftentimes are just safeties with nothing really going on. And shooter dare, every game gets right to the best parts, like of one pocket, where you've got that dare. The first shot is always a push out or a roll out, daring your opponent to shoot. So you have to have a lot of knowledge, because if you roll out an easy shot that your opponent can make, obviously he'll just make it and run out on you. So you got to roll out more like a 50-50 type shot, and you have to be able to start identifying your opponent's strengths and weaknesses, so that you can exploit them. It's just like boxing. In this regular 9-ball we're playing, we're racking our own balls and we're alternating breaks. It's just like practicing against each other, as far as I'm concerned. Because if I just rack the balls and make the corner ball because I know how to do that, and run the rack, and then my opponent racks the balls, wires the corner ball, runs out because he knows how to do that, and there's pattern racking, and everything's designed to make the game easier. I talked to a guy last night that's a boxer and a trainer, and he had the same complaints about the game that I'm talking about. And he used a lot of words that I won't repeat, but he was pretty to the point that the game had lost, its appeal to him. And I told him about this shooter dare. I showed him the rules video, and then I answered the questions that naturally come, because this is a different mindset. You're not going to understand this game at first. It'll look like it's just like 6-ball with different rules. It's not. It's much, much, much more than that. It's got levels to it that I just can't explain. You're going to have to experience. but I can teach it, and I can get people on the right track so that the more you play it, the higher your levels will go. And there's going to be weeks where you're going to get better every single day, because if you're playing with somebody that also wants to get better, you really need to play with somebody that's serious about it. I mean, you can kind of practice it by yourself, and roll out shots and just practice those harder shots. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you work out with somebody that's got the same objectives as you have, and you're on the same page, it creates what I said in other videos, a synergistic effect, where the sums are squared. So if there's two of you that really want to get better, it'll create 4 units of energy, brain power, positiveness, whatever you want to call it. But it's going to enable you to get better 4 times as fast as you could by yourself. And then if you had 3 people, that's how come it's hard to beat these international players that come, like 4 or 5 of them to a tournament. Let's say there's 5 of them. They're all on the same page, going towards the same outcome. Creates 25 units of energy, which they can use because they'll show each other how to break, how to rack, all kinds of things that they'll notice, and they'll share the ideas, and that builds them all up as a unit. When I go to a tournament, I don't have that. If I was going to tournaments all the time, I would have, at least 1 or 2 other players that was on my side, and we'd do that as well, because that's the only way that we can beat these guys. If I go, I'm kind of a 25-1 underdog, when you take everything into consideration. I'm talking about the championship level. I'm not talking about tournaments like last night. I'm talking about playing against, the Shane Van Bonings and the Feder Gorse and the Roberto Gomez's and the, Bustemantes and all them. That's a whole different world. And I was able to compete with them at one time, and I know what it takes to do it. I just am not in the position and don't want to do it. I'm more concerned with, like I said, the shooter dare and creating a model and system for the upcoming players in this country so they can compete and win against all the international players. And I posted a video yesterday with the 9-year-old Gavin, who is one of those players, see? And I got, good rapport with his father, and honestly, if they call and ask me a question anytime, any day, that I could help them, I will. And I don't want anything in return. My payment a lot of times is just the giving part, because I found out a long time ago that I can't help myself much in ways that are really substantial unless I'm willing to give first. So, it's better to give than receive. That isn't money. That's really, it has more to do with time and effort. And if you're a parent, you know what that means, giving your child your time, your effort, your knowledge, your everything that they need, their nutrition, will help you. I talked to a man that said, having his child was like the greatest thing that ever happened to him. I think a lot of people say that. I get the same benefit from helping people with their pool and also the other hustles that's going on in this world. See, we're up against an adversary that is a million jillion times smarter than we are. So we're at a real disadvantage. And again, if we don't team up to understand what's going on, got no chance. I mean, I'm teamed up with several hundred people that are on the same page with me as far as identifying what's going on in the world, and breaking through the programming. All that stuff we see on TV is just programming. TV programming. They're broadcasting, they're programming. I mean, it's all hidden in plain sight. That's one of the rules of this too, when you get into it. The best way to deceive people is to put it right in front of them. And, because when you try to hide something from a human being, they will do whatever it takes to find it. But if they, put it right in front of people, and if you're listening to me and I know you know what I'm talking about. Maybe not all the stuff that I may be talking about or I may, know and believe, but, you'll understand that there's something really wrong with like what happened in 2020, when everybody was, taught to be scared of the air and, hide in their houses and wear masks. And hopefully you weren't one of them, and then take stuff that's, if you don't know the ingredients of something, I'd recommend don't put it in your mouth, and certainly don't, take a shot at the pocket, if you know what I mean. So accepting defeat, I had to do that several times yesterday, and especially in the finals, man, I was wore out, and something that, I complained a little bit about it, but see, they were racking the 9 on the spot, which I had never done that before, or maybe one time, like 15 years ago, but I didn't know how to break the balls. So I had to figure it out. So I went back and I was breaking the balls, and I was trying to figure out how to make the 1 in the side and how to break to make a ball. And I was trying to twist my wrist, and apply English, to see what that did. And I kind of, I've done this before. I kind of hurt my wrist, it just in a real tiny, it's like a nerve. And then the rest of the tournament, it was bothering me, and I just couldn't work it out. Like during the match, like towards the later parts of the matches, it would warm up, and it really didn't hurt me that much. But whenever I drew the ball or had to hit the ball hard, I knew it was coming. But what I did was I found that when I went down, if I lined up my wrist bone, because usually it's the V, like you see where, the V between my thumb and my forefinger, I generally have that on top of the cue. But one of the other things that I was told, years ago by Roger Griffiths is if you line up your wrist bone to the cue, then that puts you in the perfect hand position angle. So I remembered that, and I tried it, and it worked. So then, instead of thinking about anything else, the first thing that I was doing was when I got up and I'm doing my practice strokes and lining to the ball to see what I want to do, I made sure that my wrist bone was lined up with the cue. Because in that position, see, I could tell it took the pressure off of my wrist, and it didn't hurt. So I learned something from that. And that's another point I want to make is no pain, no gain. From going through I've taken over 1,700 martial arts lessons, for example, from some of the greatest martial artists I could find, 5th degree black belt and up. And, it all came from a master that was, he combined 8 different martial arts as one. And that's what I studied. The base of it was Shaolin Kung Fu. That's my main thing. And I studied Taekwondo 15 months under Master On in Dallas, who was the son of Grandmaster On that brought Taekwondo to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They had, I think, 6 or 7 schools at one time. And it's old school training. I mean, I had to break, boards with my fists and my kicks, and I've always popped my knuckles. So, he had me breaking 2 1-inch boards. And every time I would do that, it'd take me about 3 weeks to recuperate. Finally, I remember going into his office and I said, listen, Master On, I will break those boards with anything you want, but I can't do it with my first 2 knuckles anymore. I said, man, I can't play pool for 3 weeks like I want to. And I wasn't playing a lot at the time anyway, but I just, it got where I was trying to use mental tricks, but it felt like I was breaking my own bones. So that kind of pain, there is a point where maybe, you want to really evaluate, but for the most part, I've always, The way that I became a champion player was I went through a lot of pain to do it. And I started associating pain with pleasure because it does lead to pleasure or accomplishments. I would play 20-hour sessions a lot. I've done that a lot in my life. And during the course of that, you would be in so much pain that you had to have a way to just shut it off. And I developed that way. And so I would put myself into a zone where I really couldn't feel anything. I didn't think anything. I just absorbed myself into the game. That's why I say there's a point where you go from playing the game to the game playing through you when you get into that zone. And I've shared a lot of techniques on how I did that. And, I answer questions about it, but, all that information's at cjwiley.com in one of those videos or on my YouTube channel. I've got a lot of, that's where more mental stuff is talked about. I got videos just on the mental side that has a lot of nuggets in it that, you could benefit from if that's something you're interested in. So last night, the match came down. The guy had to beat me twice. He goes to 5, I go to 9. And he played really good. Like if you watched him play, had really good technique. I mean, I could alter it a little bit, but I could help the guy. But the point is, he jump balls good. He could draw his ball the length of the table and he could do everything I could do, just not as consistently. So he beat me the first set. So the second set, I evaluated it because he made two 9 balls on the break, which he had to make them in the side pocket. So he beat me, he got to 5 and, I can't remember what I got to, 6 or 7 or something like that, but he made those 2 9s on the break. And I wasn't, I messed up I really wasn't playing that good yet. So then another guy's wanted to bet me $100, my friend Ryan, he's a good guy, showed me a lot of gamble last night, but he had said he wanted to bet $100 on the guy. So I knew I was in a bad spot because he knew how good or how well the guy played, that it was my opponent. So the second set, I said, Ryan, you still want to bet that $100? And he said, yeah. So now I got another $100. So now it didn't seem like a very good gamble because it got to be 4-4. Pretty quick. So now I'm in a situation where I got to win 5 games in a row before my opponent wins 1. And he's playing just as good as me, pretty much. It's 4-4. And then he missed a shot that he shouldn't have. And I went unconscious because I was frustrated. I was getting some bad rolls and I couldn't get on the ball on the break, on the 1. I mean, it just felt like I was just going against the grain every time I stepped to the table. And it was frustrating. I shot one shot. I mean, a really good cut shot. I went an awkward, it's a 3 rails, but it's a strange, it doesn't come up that often, but I hit it really good. And it goes and scratches in the side. I saw it come. I was like, oh my, no, please. I had that happen so many times just out of the blue. And so I just presumed I was going to lose. And something happened. Like I said, I snapped into the zone and I ended up being hill. It's 8-4. So now it's hill. And I just kind of jokingly said to Ryan, I said, you want to bet another 100? And he thought about it. He says, I'll bet you 200. I said, bet. So now I'm betting 300. And I broke and scratched in the side. I was like, no, not again. So, but I know there's a lot of pressure on the guy. So anyway, the game ended up being, I can't even remember it blow by blow, but it was a pretty exciting game. And I finally broke through and got the shot and ran the balls. And I mean, it was, I'm glad to get through that. Let's just say that. Every time I've ever done stuff like this, I can always say I'd never want to do that again. And then I'll go out the next night looking to do it again. But, on my way home, my wrist was aching and, and I just kept telling myself it's going to be stronger tomorrow. And then, to make matters even stranger, I get home and I pass the road that goes to my house. And I've went there thousands of times, I guess. So I missed the turn. So I turned around and I came back and I missed it again. And I'm like, CJ, are you in the twilight zone? I mean, what in the world? So then I turned around, I put my navigator on and went back. And the reason I missed it was all the lights were off. The electricity was off. When I went in the house, my electricity had been off. So I guess there was some big storms in Dallas and we lost electricity. So there was no lights. That's how come I couldn't see. I wasn't used to, I kind of subconsciously, I know the area where I turn is lit up, but it was pitch black. So I was just passing it. So it's just odd, really. But I woke up today. I was so tired. Oh man, I went home. I went to sleep. I mean, my body was aching, and especially that little part of my wrist. And I slept really well. And I woke up and I could tell my wrist, was getting stronger. And that's how it works. I'm pretty sure it'll get stronger. Plus now I know to align that, wrist bone with my cue. So I wasn't going to hit any balls today until maybe tonight, but that's the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to align that wrist bone and just make sure that it wasn't a placebo. Sometimes you think you make discoveries and then the next day it doesn't work as well. Sometimes things just work, because you're just changing things up. And one of the worst things, when I woke up is I remembered I had a lesson today at 2. With a friend of mine that I wanted to see. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And so I got a hold of him. I explained the situation, which he was fine with it. I knew he would be. But I'm glad I remembered because, anyway, that one thing that I absolutely can't stand, I will never miss a lesson. I'll do whatever it takes. And sometimes, I'm selective about who I teach. I remember one guy, I was at a place and I had a lesson scheduled and these people were telling me about him and that he had kind of, let's just say alternative, intentions with playing better pool that I didn't particularly like. So I did call him and tell him something came up and I had to leave town, which was a little bit of a white lie, but I just didn't want to teach him. I don't want to share this information with just anybody. If I think you're going to use it for anything that could possibly be negative, I'm not going to help people like that. And later on, I remember being at a bar I was up at the women's tournament up in Fairfield, Iowa. And, I was at a bar with some other people and I put something on Facebook and this guy got on my Facebook and started just like, calling me names and telling me that I'd stood up a junior player and this kid, I crushed his heart and what a piece of shit I was. And I was like, what are you talking about? I've never canceled a lesson with a kid, But what he was talking about was him. See, he was infuriated that I had stood him up on that lesson, but I called him and told him. So the next day I called somebody that's a friend of mine, like a real good friend of mine in his area. And I told him, I said, what is wrong with this guy? I didn't even remember that, really. I didn't know what the deal was. And he told me, he said, man, you stood him up on a lesson. He says, he's aggravated because all the ones here that you've taught, we're all winning the tournaments and he's not. And, and then he told me some stuff about him. And I really was happy that I'd made the decision I made because, I just blocked him, Anybody that calls me names online, I'll debate with anybody. And if somebody has a difference of opinion, I'm fine with that. Let's debate it. But if somebody calls me names and gets dirty and nasty and all that, I block them out of my life. I don't care if I ever see them again. It makes no difference to me. I'm into quality, not quantity, especially online. There's so many disturbed people and these keyboard warriors that act like they want to fight. And I see some of them in person, and they walk around the room not to go by me because, you can't talk to another man like that in person. And they're going to find out, not from me. I'm, pretty peaceful, but if somebody attacks me, I attack back. I don't have any backup. That's how come I was such a influential money player, is because when I was, put in the box, like Strong Arm John used to say, I'm going to put you in the box. And, I played for, it was life or death with me. Every time I played, I was like a samurai. I was ready to play to the death. I used to fantasize about actually playing to the death. And I think I may have back then. The longest I ever played, and I played several opponents and a tournament, was 52 hours. That's the longest I ever played, but I played over 20 and 30 many times. And that builds up something that I don't think you can get any other way. But after those matches, every bone in my body felt like it was hurting, my muscles, but when I woke up the next day, and maybe after a day or two, everything got stronger. It's just like forging weapons, like a sword or something. You got to beat on them to make them stronger. It comes from resistance in life. If you're not willing to put yourself in positions of resistance, you're not going to get as sharp as you could get, and that goes for mentally and going back to what's happening with us in the world. This information that is the truth is painful. That's how come people go away from it, because it threatens what you think the security is, because, we've been taught to have this herd mentality, and that if you're not going along with, the mainstream narrative, whether it's, there's two sides to all of it. So they always give us two sides to choose from. That's what hustlers do. That's what salespeople do. You don't try to convince something or somebody of something. You give them two choices, and they're both wrong in this case, And that goes for the political system, the educational system, the religious system. Yeah. You always want to give people two choices. But that's a whole nother story. I don't want to get into that. But that's what I like to talk about. When I'm around most of my friends that are they're extraordinary in some area. Like one of the guys I like the best is a comedian. I've got another friend that's one of the best stage magicians in the country. And I got friends that are incredible electricians and plumbers and carpenters. And I got friends in the Homeland Security. You may be watching now. I won't say your name. I don't know how much, but I went to his house and gave him some lessons. He lives out in the country, and we had some really good conversations. So, but I also respect confidentiality. And I got another guy I taught that's with the Department of Defense. I actually dated a girl that was in the Department of Defense. She's the first one to tell me, well, I don't want to get into that one, but let's just say she opened my eyes to something that opened up a lot as far as understanding how this world works, and especially how magicians work when they point up. And that's not where the trick is. The trick is here. It's the mind control, Anytime they're pointing up, you better look inside, because that's where they're directing things. But she ended up sending me a high-powered telescope that is so big I can't carry it with me. I wish I could have got a smaller one, but I could see the moon. Like the light came through the telescope, and I could put my hand out and see the beam on my hand from this indirect light, supposedly, that's 237,000 miles away. Yeah. Again, I don't want to get into that because that stirs up all kinds of cognitive dissonance with people, and but I will when it's appropriate. You know, I don't fear personal consequences for telling the truth. I mean, it has caused me to lose business opportunities. I mean, I had somebody influential in the billiard world say, you know, if I expect to get in the Hall of Fame, I probably shouldn't be talking about that kind of stuff. It was an indirect threat. I don't care. If that's what I have to do to get in and recognized by, I don't care. My accomplishments speak for themselves. And, you know, if they don't like some of my theories or positions on things, then, you know, it's just not meant to be. What's meant to be with me is I'm going to promote this Shoot or Dare, and I appreciate you helping me and, you know, get some of my videos out if you got friends that also are on the same page. I want the ones of us that are on the same page that create synergy, the synergistic effect. Because if we get 1,000 people that want to go towards making pool really great, that's 1,000,000 units of energy, see? I can get it back on TV. Absolutely. I could do that next week, probably. But it costs money, or, you know, like I said, I've got ways to make deals with them, but it takes time to put those deals together. My first tournament is in the middle of July. Again, shootordare.com if you want to see more about what it is. I'm going to start putting matches up, but we're not rushing this out because, you know, we got to create some programs. My partner is a genius in the in computers and AI, and we got some things that's going to revolutionize how the tournaments are played. Like I said, we can tell how long the matches, you know, we can tell how long each person takes to play a match. And that'll help you too. You know, when you see statistics like that, you know, we can get it down on video to where we can tell how long it takes you to shoot each shot. You know, anything that's on video, we can program the AI, the alien intelligence to be able to, you know, categorize so that you can see different aspects of your game that may help you, you know. So the AI stuff is beneficial. The only thing that they're doing now is they're acting like AI can have a mind of its own and be sentient and take over and this and that. That's not true. They're using it as a scapegoat. What they're doing is, just like they did in 2020, they created this narrative of something that every time somebody got sick, they could point to that. And you notice that's what they did. No matter what you had, it was that. What you had, it was that. So what they're going to do is create a scenario where we are going to be programmed to believe that our government is now, and this is coming pretty quick, controlled by the AI, and that we won't even understand what it's doing and how much it's going to benefit us and how it's going to carry on our evolution is what they'll end up saying. Because we stopped evolving, if you believe we came from a frog or a turtle or a amoeba or a monkey or whatever. You know, even as a kid, I thought that was just, you know, one species can't turn into another species. Hey, and if you believe it, we can still be friends. I'm okay with that. My sister wrote a book about it, you know, and combined evolution with, she has a PhD in theology and wrote, you know, 15 different books and 9 prefaces, and she's very intelligent, educated, intelligent. I'm street smart, intelligent. You know, I got the PhD, the pool hall degree. She actually had the PhD, but it was in theology, and man, that's just another program. You know, those people with the PhDs, you know, they have to be able to explore outside the box or they're going to be trapped. You know, that goes for anybody, myself included. Believe me, I practice what I preach. That's why I wanted to tell you in this video that the video I did yesterday about how to get in the mindset to snatch, you know, victory from the jaws of defeat, basically, is something I practiced that day. I did that yesterday many, many times, and I ended up winning the tournament. And many times during the tournament, if you'd asked me, to be honest, do you think you're going to win? I would have said no because my wrist hurt and I was a little bit off, and the racking the 9 on the spot, and the tables are really good, but they were a little tricky, and, but I'm not using those as excuses. So what I do is I just channel it into, just not caring in a healthy way, so that I just accept whatever happens and lower my expectations, like Johnny Archer said he did, to become the player of the decade in the 90s, when there's more great players now, but those players, Efren was in his prime, Bustemante's in his prime, Earl was in his prime, Buddy Hall was at the later end, and Sigel and Varner and Hopkins and Tony Ellen before he passed, incredible player, on and on. Jimmy Wetch was one of them that, was one of the top players for a number of years, and Jimmy Reed and Steve Miserak. I mean, I've told you the Steve Miserak story. He was an inspiration in my life. And when I beat him in Reno, it was the best-selling video of the year with AccuStats, is what Pat Fleming told me. But I was playing my childhood hero. I was, and it went hill. I think I shot a 937 or something, and he was 920 something. We both played great. I went down to the last game, and I ran that last rack in, I think, less than a minute. And it was pretty tricky. But I was in that zone where I just attacked the table. Oh. William Towery. Here's a couple of us at Anytime Billiards, Springfield, Missouri, that have already started playing this. We are going to see what we can do. Okay. Well, if I can help anybody, I'm answering I get lots of questions every day. And I've always answered every question that I've ever had. Nobody, there again, unless somebody's rude to me or something, gee whiz, I'm just trying to help. That's all I'm doing. I don't expect any compensation, but if you do want to help me out, because, I can't do anything else while I'm promoting this game. So if you join, cjwiley.com, it's less than $10 a month. That does help. And there's thousands of dollars worth of videos on there. So my strategy in business is just to give more value than what I charge for that value. So if I'm giving thousands of dollars worth of value for $10 a month, I feel like that's a pretty good deal for you and me. Plus, I can use that money now to help, get to these tournaments and especially this first one. We want it to be spectacular, and the players are going to be, I could tell you what we're going to do, but some of it's proprietary information, and my partner would not be happy with me. I said something one day, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but he was like, CJ, you really don't need to be telling people what we're doing. And I was like, man, I thought that. Oh, I get it. Okay. Sorry. I apologize. That moon has been very bright. Seems very obvious. Andrew, brother, we're on the same page. We know. We've been lied to on a level that's hard to comprehend for most, because it's painful, man. You go through all this education and school, and then you find out that you've been manipulated, and there's 1,000 different people right away that'll tell you how crazy you are if you even start to doubt the system. So, and I know people that have their family excommunicated them, let's just say, and wives and husbands. And, this pursuit of truth isn't all fun and, rainbows and unicorns and all that. It's a serious deal, man. And the more you get into it, the more serious you see that it is. So the truth will set you free, but it's a brutal awakening at first, because, you have to change your worldview. And I went through it, man. There was times where I had to stay away from people because I was learning stuff about the occult and how to recognize their communication and their symbology. And it's some dark stuff, but, I made it through, and it made me stronger. It all does. You know, they say, you know, anything that involves pain, you know, where you're doing something in a positive way will make you stronger. But here I am right now. If you can see this view, I'm going all the way down to the bottom. I don't know if you can see, and my windshield's kind of dirty from going to Waco and back. A couple little bugs committed suicide, but you can't see maybe how severe that is, but it's a long ways down. And I don't really want to get out and take a hike and work out today, but I know if I do, I will be happy that I did, and I'll feel better quicker. I remember being, when I was doing my martial arts training one time, I went through a brutal training, and that night I went to sleep. I woke up, and I was supposed to be in again that morning. And my instructor called me, Assistant Regional Head Instructor Mark, and said, CJ, can we expect you in? And I said, Assistant Regional Head Instructor Mark, I said, I had to crawl to go to the bathroom this morning. I can't even walk. He says, you know, if you come in and we work that out, you'll feel better. You know that, right? I said, yes. He said, so when can we expect you in? I said, I'll be in at noon. That's when, click. I got up and I was like, I swear I couldn't even hardly, but I went and ran a bath, put salt in it, got in the bath because I knew that would work. And I ran it as hot as I could. I got in the bath for like 5 minutes or something. And then it started, you know, then my muscles started to cooperate with me. I got in, he worked me out. And at first it was painful to get started. He knew that. He wasn't going to try to, you know, unnecessarily hurt me. And, but once I got warmed up, once I went through the training later that evening, I was right back to, feeling good again. Plus I was a little bit stronger, you know. My 2nd degree black belt test, took 4 hours. And you see, the thing about the human body is when you're working out, you're going to sweat because it cools your body down. But if you keep working out and keep working out, there's a point where you'll stop sweating because your body will register that you're going to dehydrate. Because, you know, we're created to stay alive first and foremost. So if your control center in your mind says that you're going to dehydrate, then you'll stop sweating. But if you keep working out, then it will be over. It'll you know, switch because now you're getting too hot again and you'll start sweating again. So when I went through my 2nd degree black belt test, we went through 2 cycles of that, which took 4 hours. And, man, it was brutal. And during the course of that, in one of the sparring, sessions, I was up against this guy and he came at me and, you know, whatever happened, I, you know, kicked him with a side kick in the ribs and I hurt him, you know, and he had trouble getting through the rest of the, test, but he did. And, you know, that was part of his, you know, path. And afterwards I, talked to my instructor in the office alone. I said, man, I'm sorry that happened. I didn't mean to hurt the guy. He said, that's what he needed though. He says, you may not understand that right now. He said, but we all draw in what we need to make us stronger. That's what he needed. You know, you didn't hurt him that bad. He's going to be all right. And his ribs will be stronger. After that test, I couldn't eat a half a peanut for 25 hours and slept for 17 hours. And when I said I couldn't eat a half a peanut, I don't mean I couldn't because I wanted to. It's because it broke me down so much. I literally couldn't eat. I couldn't hold down food. So that 25-hour period was a recuperation process. And then I started to put food back in my stomach. And I started out with like a smoothie and like some soups and, you know, and, my martial arts teacher had told me, you know, what I needed to nourish myself with, drank a lot of water. Now, I drank a lot of water during that 25-hour period and then slept for 17 hours because, they absolutely physically broke me down to, the core. And I don't recommend, don't try that at home, folks. But I do recommend that if you see something in your life that you've been putting off that might be a little painful to do, but it's going to bring you, a better quality of life, whether that's on the physical, mental, or spiritual level. I'm telling you and sharing, my true life story, and I'm being totally honest. I don't have this. I spent years of my life as a pool hustler trying to convince people that I'm stupid and I'm crazy or whatever the case may be, because people wouldn't gamble with me if they thought that I was smarter than them or that's just a fact. So I don't have the same thing that a lot of people have where they're scared of being publicly shamed or humiliated or called names or stuff like that. They just can't do that to me in person. I'm talking about on the internet more than anything. In person, they have to deal with the consequences of doing that. And I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. I'm not going to do it to them. I just recommend they don't do it to me. Anyway, that's about all for today. Again, shootordare.com. My physical stuff, fundamentals, techniques, and systems are at cjwiley.com. This shoot or dare, man, it takes 10 minutes to learn, but a lifetime to master. It's like truth or dare, but it's shoot or dare on a pool table. And I will assure you, you play that game between 5 and 20 hours, you'll improve your knowledge base more than you could playing regular rotation for years and years and years. Hey, man, we got Danny Youngerman. Keep up the good work. I will. I'm going to do these videos a lot more often. Anyway, who else we got here? Butch Millican. How you doing, brother? William Terry again. All right. Man, we got a lot of... Ted Copeland, are you kidding me? Have you called your mother lately? He always cares about my mother. Hey, what a sweet guy you are. She's 93 years old, man, and Ted must have had a crush on her when she worked at CJ's. Ted Copeland is a character. He'll tell you this story. I'm going to tell this real quick. He played really good on a bar table. I can knock him now that he's not a gambler anymore. I wouldn't have said that years ago because he snuck up and beat a lot of guys. But I gave him the 6 ball on a bar table, and he had me 17 games loser. I was 17 games behind, and something happened. I went into that zone. And I'd like to hear his side of the story on that. We've shared it before. I know he remembers vividly, even though it's been a lot of years ago. But I ended up beating him like 25 games ahead. That's a 43-game swing. And I know there was over 20 games where he never got a shot. And I didn't run all those racks, but I either ran the rack or played safe and locked him up and just outmoved him. But I think there was probably a 20-some game period there where he wasn't able to make a ball. And I told him afterwards that, man, I didn't even hardly remember doing it because, like I said, there's a point when you go into that deep, deep zone where you go from you playing the game to the game playing through you. The hitter and target become one, like Zen and the Art of Archery. And the release is like snow falling off a bamboo leaf, is what they say, at the moment of highest tension. When you're playing your best pool, you're not aware of when the cue is released, when the ball is hit. You're not aiming, you're connecting. And that's what I teach how to do. And then once you know the physical part, then when you go into the zone, you can do that even better. But when you start getting into the position and the mindset, and that's what this the shooter dare, it's a different mindset. You just won't, there's no way you can understand it unless you do it. I can explain it 100 different ways vividly, and people still won't get it until they experience it. There's lots of things like that in life. But once you start allowing the game to play through you, it leads to things that will enhance your whole life. I know that. That's why I say the game is the teacher. Till next time, this is CJ. Talk with you soon.